world of ours as we know it. All of us can kind of remember, I think all of us are old enough, back in the 80s. It started out with Star Trek in the New Generation, and you had Data standing up there with this thing in front of his face, and he was an android, android being the first term that I can remember out there that now has to do an awful lot with the stuff that we're using today. But needless to say, we took some advice from that process along with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator series had this device on his face so that he could interact with the world and see things and make changes. When I watched all those shows, I thought that would never happen. Well, first example sitting right over here on my right. Yes, it has, and here it is in front of us. Let me give you a couple definitions from the scientific community that might at least begin this process. The first is virtual reality. Virtual reality, we all know, is computer generated. Computer generated means that it puts something out there and we can interact with it in some form. And that allows us to escape the real reality. Some of us like to do that. Kids especially like to play virtual reality type video games, and you see them on that constantly. What Google Glass actually falls into is a concept called augmented reality. That takes place also in the real world, and basically the computer supplies visual information which is superimposed on top of what we see. That's what we consider to be our real world. And this whole process is supposed to not distract us, but as I'm sure you can relate, it can distract us an awful lot. And I'll get to that in just a minute. Google isn't the only company who's brought out these types of devices. A couple other ones. The first one is called Vizuzex. This thing runs GPS, text, video, certain apps, things like that. There's another one called Raycon Jet, which can display sports data and the distance traveled and weather updates. The next one is called Epson Movero, which projects movie clips. And the last one is called iTap. And iTap is basically a do-it-yourself device if you're so inclined and want to build your own process that's going to look like these things. All of those have their own functions, have different things that they're going to provide. Google Glass, I think, is kind of because of the money behind them, been able to get out there to the media and make their name very well known so that everybody knows a little bit about it. So what's this process? Well, Google Glass is actually their vision of putting back control of your technology. That's the words that they use. And it basically gives you a hands-free device. It's fairly simple to use. It's turned on only when you need it. It can perform most functions that a cell phone can without the need to take it out of your pocket. It allows you to make Google searches. It allows you to do a turn-by-turn navigation, view web pages, view and respond to text messages and emails, and it's activated either by touching the trackpad, and I'm sure if you guys want to see one, he'll be glad to show it to you, or you can tilt your head up and that turns it on as well. This device comes in 5 different colors. It has, some people like to have multiple pairs. It has Bluetooth, it has a 16 gigabyte flash storage drive, it has a 1 gigabyte RAM, it has Wi-Fi, a microphone, a gyroscope, 5 megapixel camera. It also has a bone conduction speaker. It has infrared sensors, and the trackpad that runs along the temple is basically designed to make it so that you can just do this and you're off, or do this and you're off, as I mentioned before. It weighs a little over 40 grams. And the battery for it is located behind your ear. The battery storage capability is 45 minutes of uninterrupted video recording time. Obviously, if you're going to take individual pictures or if you're going to do something special, it doesn't take very long. It's going to last a little longer. The cost for this fabulous device is $1,800 for the frame by itself, and then lenses go into it if you need them. So needless to say, Google's done a pretty good job of getting something out there that has a lot of capability. Most of us would not use that. How many in the room think they're going to buy one within the next 6 months? That's my feeling too. We're going to use this. Oh, absolutely. So some of the concerns, and there are concerns that have been brought out in terms of what this thing does. As we know, when you have something in front of your eyes and you're trying to drive down, navigate down the road, it's going to be distracting. So how do we reduce this distraction? And that is something that they're, again, working on probably in their next generation. They have found in beta testing that these devices can cause eye fatigue from prolonged upgaze, dry eye syndrome from lack of blinking because you're staring at this thing so much. The biggest concern is the fact that you're getting a splitting of your vision. You've got an image that's right here. You've got an overall field in front of you. This image is not it's specifically extended out at what we call optical infinity. So there is some focusing that's involved. Excuse me. So those in our age group don't have focusing capability, and therefore we're not going to see it quite as well as a 20-year-old is going to see it. Was that the last time they told us that? However, over time, these two images are going to be probably put back together so that you're going to see this thing projected right out in front of you, and you'll be able to tell the screen to increase or decrease the enhancement to allow you to see more or see less of what you're trying to look at. That's going to be very helpful for us when we're trying to GPS something. I need to go down, turn right, turn left, wherever, and the road is right there. It's going to project these arrows on the road and then tell you what to do. It's put before the dominant eye as of now. Now, the dominant eye for most people is their right eye because we're all right-handed. Some people will have mixed dominance, which means I'm right-handed, but my left eye is my dominant eye. For those people, they're just going to be messed up because here you are trying to do everything and the lens is sitting over here. This is my dominant eye, so I'm not going to be able to enhance that as well as I would like, and it's going to interfere a little bit more. Again, that process will be improved as time goes on, and I think the fatiguing factors are going to be improved as time goes on as well. So let's put this into a practical reality of today. What are we going to use this thing for? Well, medicine has already embraced this thing in a number of ways. First of all, they're using it in the classroom for students. They're going to be able to see what the instructor is talking about. Let's say there's a surgical procedure for a medical student, and either the medical student is performing this procedure, in which case the instructor can be sitting at a computer away from the student. The image is being projected. The student is being given information on that Google Glass to either do a particular suture, make an incision a little deeper, do all those kind of things. The instructor doesn't have to be standing right at his right hand, staring into the patient. Also, when they're sitting in class and the instructor is putting something up, they would be able to be given additional information through that Google Glass that would enhance that presentation.
Like the test answer.
Like the test answer. Very good. Probably will happen. Students are smarter than we are. When you walk into a patient's room in the hospital, there'll be a barcode that'll be on the, and this is already happening over at Johns Hopkins, there'll be a barcode that's on the door. You'll scan the barcode. As you walk in, all the information in the record will be projected, so you don't have to carry something around. You'll know the patient's name, you'll know the history, you'll know what's been done recently, you'll know what's being done well and not being done well as far as blood pressures and therapeutics and all of those kind of things, which will enhance that environment so that you'll be able to spend more time concentrating on the patient. So needless to say, there are limitless applications in medicine for this particular device. Manufacturing, you'd be able to check inventories, you'd be able to monitor assembling of products from the employee standpoint as they're actually doing that. Any mobile devices, from GPS coordinates to directions to points of interest could be provided in real time. For athletes, there would be biofeedback, and especially for us weekend athletes. If you're standing over a golf ball, you're going to try and hit it. The Google Glass could project to the last shot that you made. It could give you the instructor, if you happen to be taking lessons, what they recommended that you do, and then you try to take that out onto the course. The same would hold true for other sports, whether it's baseball, whether it's tennis, whether it's badminton, doesn't matter. All of that stuff would be able to be projected for you. Let's say I'm standing at a meeting and I've got a whole bunch of people and I look at this person and I can't remember who they are. That's happened to all of us. Facial recognition is something that this Google Glass will be able to do, and from that facial recognition up pops the name and you'll never forget that name again. How about that? That works very well for those of us who are out there doing that. TV enhancements, if I'm watching a show and all your friends know all of the actors and actresses, you don't know any of them. That information could be popped up in front of you, and you'd be able to have a little better conversation with people and explain to them, or they can explain more to you and tell you how no, that's not true, and you can say yes, that is. Go to your computer and look it up. So I think that would be kind of a fun thing to do if you wanted to do that. Obviously, baseball scores and things like that, they have all that tracking along the bottom of these screens today. That wouldn't be necessary if you had a Google Glass device on. All that would be presented to you in a different environment. So as we start into this new era of technology and what it's going to do for us, sometimes a little bit is too much. And what I'm referring to here is the fact that each of these devices that we have, whether it's a smartphone, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a flat screen, whether it's an LED monitor, all of them give off high energy radiation. It's in the level of the blue and the violet rays, and all of this high energy radiation will have some effect on us all, to the good, to the bad. A little bit of blue light is helpful because it helps us with our normal light and dark, when to get up, when not to give up, what they call the circadian, is that what it is, circadian variation? Oh well, never mind. And the more light we have, the earlier we get up, the less light we have, the more we sleep in. That whole process is dictated to us by the light that we have, and that is something that would be beneficial to us and something that we need. The wavelength, if you remember your physical chemistry, runs from about 380 to 470 nanometers. The area above 780 transmits primarily heat, that's the infrared spectrum. Below 380 is the ultraviolet, or the cool end of the spectrum. So we're talking about the area that's at the lower end and not at the upper end of this process. The lower end can be also responsible for helping us with cognitive performance, so we have an excuse when we can't remember anything. It also helps with our moods, color perception, and body temperature. You've seen those mood lights that they have that you can sit under, especially in the middle of winter, and you'll notice that they're very bright and they have that cool bluish cast to them. That's what they are, and that's how they affect us. However, children are on a different table because, as we all know, having gone out to dinner with my grandkids here and watching them interact, they sit on iPads, they sit on cell phones. That's how parents keep them quiet. That's how they're able to have a nice evening out. But those phones are giving off this radiation, and unfortunately, until they're about 21, the lens of the eye is not able to absorb as much of this high energy blue light as it would be for us adults. We have a pigment in the lens that develops over time, and it's that pigment that helps us but doesn't necessarily help them. We've all heard that skin cancers and the changes in skin occur primarily before the age of 18, and then we pay the price later in life. That's the same concept that they're putting out there in terms of this blue light radiation and the effects on kids. And will they, when they get to be 35, have cataracts, or will they not have cataracts? We don't know yet, but there's a generation that's starting to get closer to that who has been brought up in this environment, and we're going to find out very quickly what the effects are. All of us have friends who have been diagnosed with macular degeneration, and some of us in this room have been diagnosed with macular degeneration. One of the culprits in that is this high-end blue radiation getting back there and having some effect. And unfortunately, once the effect is there, and I will tell you that macular degeneration today is primarily a vascular disease, meaning that the blood vessels that supply this tissue, and this tissue is a very small part of your eye, but it's at the very back, and it is responsible for our critical central vision, which means I'm looking at these letters right here. The macula is where these letters are being imaged, and if that macula isn't functioning, I would have a big hole in the center where I wouldn't be able to read these things. So that macula, when the vessels leak, that's called wet macular degeneration. When those vessels dry up and that tissue atrophies because there's no nutrients, that's dry macular degeneration. But blue light will affect, will affect that tissue, and it will affect the retinal pigment epithelium that's there, so that this light can get down to that vascular layer and have some effect. That's the thinking today in terms of macular degeneration. So the formation of cataracts, this macular degeneration, are two of the things that we worry about in the eye industry. What can we do to solve? What can we do to fix? Research has shown us that 67% of adults spend up to 7 hours a day on a computer or a smartphone. Think about it yourself. Up to 56% of us use a smartphone or a computer or a handheld device when reading instead of a printed book. As many as 54% of us sleep with their cell phones in their rooms or even in bed with them. That's our alarm clock in many cases, so it's going to be right next to us. Add 4 hours of TV every day, and you can see why our exposure to blue light is at an all-time high. So what can we do to protect ourselves from this? Let's go to that next level. First of all, this doesn't necessarily apply to blue light. This applies to use of computers. I tell all of my patients, use the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, take 20 seconds, look 20 feet away. What are you doing? Well, basically, you're relaxing, focusing. You're giving your eyes an opportunity to go to a straight position so those muscles that turn the eyes in become a little more relaxed. And usually when you look out there, you're going to blink a couple times because that's just the normal reaction that we do. Staring at computers, as I mentioned earlier, can contribute to dry eye formation. So that 20-20 rule is going to be helpful to you, and you'll find at the end of the day, certainly at the end of the week, and over a career, this will make a pretty good difference for you. You can eat right to protect your retina. More vitamin C, E, beta carotene, and minerals. The minerals are zinc and copper that we eat, the better for our eyes. Most of us can get these through the foods that we eat, so you don't really need to consider supplements unless you're being told that you have a problem. I'll get to that in a second. The foods are spinach, almonds, bell peppers, oranges, Brussels sprouts, sweet potatoes, any greens, watermelon, cherries, tomatoes. If you remember Bob Tate, when he was talking to us, he was mentioning that diet plays a pretty good part in what we do, and I would agree to that statement. So most everybody can eat some of that stuff. You may not like Brussels sprouts, or you might like the other things, and therefore you're going to get plenty of vitamins and minerals through that. If you're going to supplement because they've told you that you've got the beginnings of macular degeneration, the new AREDS study, it's called AREDS 2, that came out last year, says that you should be taking 500 milligrams of vitamin C, 400 international units of vitamin E, 15 milligrams of beta carotene, 80 milligrams of zinc, and 2 milligrams of copper. That's been shown to reduce at least the progression of this disease by about 25%. That doesn't occur for everybody, but if I fall within the 25%, I'm glad that I did that. Last but not least, we have some companies that are, well, let's do this first. Sleep habits. Obviously, all of us should be getting sleep, but what are the things that cause us not to go to sleep? Well, the more we're interacting with these computers, the more the brain is saying, oh, I better do this tomorrow, that tomorrow, or something else. So by all means, try to turn off your laptop. Do something that's a little more quiet an hour before you go to bed. And not only that will that relax the eyes, but it'll also promote that sleep cycle. We've seen the advertisements for Transition Extra Active on television. The Extra Active lens purports itself to block 90% of blue light both outdoors and 35% indoors. That's one of the beginning stages of the optical industry coming out with lenses that you'll be able to use to block this stuff so that you're not going to have quite as much coming into the eye. Unfortunately, most of us, when we take our kids to the doctor, say, well, just give them something that's good enough, because we don't think about these things. More and more of my patients are getting lenses that darken and lighten because the kids are affected outside. More and more of my patients, because of that, are getting these extra active lenses in the transition form because, again, those darken and lighten. Those will enhance and enable people to be a little bit more comfortable. And within the next couple of years, we're going to be seeing even more stuff coming down the pipe from the industry as the research starts to come out and become more prevalent. And with that, I think I'm going to stop. I'll ask for questions. Doesn't have to do with this. It can be anything that you have in mind. Yes, Al.
With all this new technology, did they figure out a way to keep my glasses from sliding down my nose?
Yeah, it's called super glue, and put it on there. And these Google glasses, the batteries, because of their weight, help to keep the glasses up. So get yourself a pair of Google glasses. Yeah.
David, you mentioned that the battery right behind there. What about the radiation from the battery in the brain continuously there? Have they done anything about that?
I'll only tell you that they're studying it. Not only is there radiation, but it also gives off heat. equipment. So because of that heat, people are tending to say, oh, well, I can't wear it all day long. I need to wear it for certain things. So yes, studies are going on. I can't tell you anything definitive at this point in time. Go ahead.
If anyone wants to try it, they're welcome to. I'll show them after the meeting.
Excellent. Because I tried to get this. Google was very, very critical about just letting everybody take these things out. We've discussed a couple of them in the office, and so I know a little bit about the optics that goes into them and how they're set up. But they're not just going to let me bring in something to show around that might not necessarily go home with me. Not that I don't trust all you guys. Other questions? Yes, Ken.
Many of us on the high side of 40 can't read a menu in a dark restaurant at night that's 18 inches from our face. Reading that. How are we supposed to focus on something 3 inches from our eye?
Well, it'll project it out. It just won't project it out as if it's 20 feet away. So it'll look like it's in front of the scene that you're seeing. And because of that, you don't have to use as much focusing. You'll have to use a little bit. And you can adjust the size, increase the font, this, and this. So you can adjust the menu to see it a little bit better.
Dave, is this some of the technology that fighter pilots have had?
Absolutely. Yeah, they've had this quite a while. In fact, many of the new cars, I know the BMWs, have this thing projected right out in front of you without having to do any of this stuff. So, yeah, fighter pilots, I can remember when George Foster asked me, this was 15 years ago, do I know anything about heads-up display? And I said, well, no, not really, but I can tell you that the research and the literature that I've seen, it's becoming more prevalent. He said, well, it's kind of interesting because I'm doing some work on this for the military. This has come a long ways. In fact, all of those guys today do not have to look down at anything. It's projected right in front of them, and they can either voice actively change what the setting is, or they can physically put it in ahead of time so that they know landing speeds, wind directions, all of that stuff. Yes, Jane.
This may be a silly question, but maybe not. If the battery on that gadget goes behind the ear, and you're already wearing 2 hearing aids with battery, how are we going to cope with that?
Well, the answer is you're going to walk around like this. You can tell that this device is not meant for everybody, and I think that in time they'll make those things smaller, but unfortunately battery sizes are a problem in everything that we're doing today. But they continue to miniaturize it just like they continue to miniaturize computer chips. Who knows? Maybe this won't be the answer. Maybe it's going to be the watch that they've now brought out. Maybe it'll be something else that they bring out that'll be projected in front of us to allow us to see. I don't know. But at least right now, the applications for this particular device are going to be in specific areas, specific businesses, specific professions.
Dave, could you give Brian the supplementation stats?
Sure. Absolutely.
So he can put it on the website.
I will do that.
To answer your question about battery and how to make it lighter, that's something I do have a little experience with lately.
Absolutely.
Actually, there's a new battery coming out that should be released shortly. It's called a spray coating battery. They'll literally be able to put batteries onto the frames of the glasses because the frames themselves will actually be batteries. So it's called spray coating battery.
There you go, Judy. You won't have to walk like that. Any other questions?
Hey Dave, what's going on with the price? That seems like a major deterrent to me. $1,000 or something. Is it going to be heading down soon?
I won't expect it to go down in the next 12 months, but as time goes on, more and more of these get sold as the technology changes. The old ones, just like phones, the old ones will be cheaper and the new ones will be more expensive. So I certainly expect the price to go down. All right, thank you.
Let's express our appreciation. I must rise, though, as a determined enemy of progress. My experience is that the more people become dependent on technology, their internal innate faculties deteriorate. So as people have gotten used to using GPSs, they've lost their senses of direction. Or as all the misspelled words and what they're writing is underlined in red, they lose the ability to spell. Or as kids, as they use calculators in math class, grade school, they can't add and subtract. So I guess I do challenge you whether this is going to be a memory aid. I think it'll be a memory deteriorator.
I don't disagree. Not at all.